That's because I can see it so vividly that you're there like, oh, hang on a minute, the rules are the rules, and everyone just told you to jog on, and then didn't let you play the next day in school, probably. Moving on those, we draw back to the game we are actually talking about here. J4 on the top on that Quest Shaman versus Frenetic on the Mage, kicking right off.
Decent opener on Jay's side. Weird consideration as to how you play these curves out. Weirdly, you know, when you have these lists that top out of 4 and don't really play Earth Elemental, weirdly Canal Slugger is your biggest threat in the entire deck, so it's kind of a decent minion to have on early, and Lightning Bloom always allows those nutso starts on part 1 of the quest line, using a Lightning Bloom, having a huge tempo turn, and then getting all of those crystals unlocked. It's just that the second one, because the second one doesn't work out well with the first one, you kind of have to throw away both and look for 3-drops instead, right? Because they're generally the cards that work out really, really well with the Lightning Bloom curve.
Yeah, it does make it a little bit smoother. Meanwhile, Frenetic's hand is not fantastic with Hot Streak and Fire Sale in there. I imagine it might be an early cycle for that Fire Sale just to shift over for something a little bit more playable. But again, I will draw back to just Fire Sale lining up against Shaman very well. So it is a tough call to make, I think, for Frenetic.
Yeah. A little bit awkward, skips turn 2. Obviously, he skips turn 3 as well, and his deck is automatically discounted by 1, as is the style at the time in the European region.
Wasn't even going to mention
that. But after that, he's hoping he's going to be able to put some stronger things together. He does have this Fire Sale in the opening hand, and it's interesting. Frenetic here just pings and passes as opposed to cycling and ticking Arcane with the Cram Session, or doing as RDU did in the previous series and cycling Fire Sale, which is something that he could have done there. Frenetic instead choosing to hold on to it. And it did seem like that was a decision that came back to bite RDU a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, it's a very difficult card to throw away when the majority of your opponent's minions are in that 3 health range. And you know there's not often a great refill after the fact. There is going to be the Spirit Alpha come down now for J4, and that's awkward because it makes 2 3s, but it is in fact a 2-5 itself. So a little bit awkward here for Frenetic to deal with.
Yeah, nice, like, creative little curve from J4 here as well, as he plays it out with the Bloom, and your initial thought is, well, hang on, like, you don't get to do anything with that for 2 turns at this point, but by using the Overdraft, he can aggressively unlock those crystals once and then load up with the Feral Spirits.
And here's the reward, and even if you might at a glance think, oh, well, that was lucky, he got the first flame. He had Ruined Orb and Hot Streak as well, so he always could have done that. And there's the payoff for keeping hold of the Fire Sale, and now J4 is pretty much back to square one with not a lot of mana to play with right now.
Yeah, and that is a fairly ugly time to draw Charge Call, I would say, a little bit too early. Portal off the top probably would have been one of the better draws. Feral Spirit number 2. But that's an underwhelming looking hand right now.
Never be afraid of your inner
Ends up having to tempo Fireheart. Don't hate it. Well, I do hate it. I just don't disagree with it.
Ooh, didn't pick Vivid Soul.
Strictly incorrect. Disqualified. Under rule number 12.1, subsection E, you are actually disqualified from Hearthstone Grandmasters for not picking Vivid Spores.
Only last week Sol said he wouldn't comment on the rules, actually, as it wasn't his job. So I suggest you keep up with that and be quiet.
You're keeping a notebook on subtle continuity now? This is going to be problematic.
It's the little things, Sol. It's the little things.
It is the little things, yeah.
Yeah, Frenetic having strong answers. And again, interesting question here, right? Because once more, very similar to the RDU game, Flame Strike is on offer. Frenetic, of course, not facing down a full board, so less of a huge chance to go for it. But again, with other things to do in the next turn or so, I wouldn't have even hated it being picked there as just a backup plan in case there is a big refill. J4 does have the option to kill this town though, so though it will downgrade the card to just Flame.
What to do?
Oh, why did I find that so?
Yeah. All I need to do by the sounds of it is say the things I don't think are that funny, and it seems to tick the box. Whereas things I think are hilarious, you just tell me to be quiet.
Yeah. I think that's probably accurate, yeah. No lies detected.
Frenetic again just showing respect, and I think it's a fair way to play this matchup. It's just don't let them ever really get hold of the board, and you will kind of naturally progress to your quest, then progress to card draw, and then win the game.
Mm-hmm. It's just always alarming. I think, when I'm playing the game, as I was for the first, week or so of this expansion without Grandmasters or any casting happening. Obviously, when you're playing the game, you're just constantly mousing over opponents' quests or your quests. So you have a good idea of where people are going along. When you're commentating, you do have moments where you just kind of lose track of quest progress and you just have to update yourself. So just mouse over the quest. It always surprises me every single time just how far people are with their quests in situations like that where I just haven't been paying close attention entirely. Like, it's turn 6 and Frenetic is just Fire Arcane away from Arcanist Dawngrasp. It's ridiculous.
There are plans in the future to get the technology for us to keep easier track of this. So yeah, that is definitely in the works.
Hey, it got cheaper.
Also, a weird benefit as well here that this Oasis ally will naturally go off a lot of the time, right? Once Frenetic gets the quest done and gets Dawngrasp on the board. And that's nothing to sniff at, just having that 3/6 freeze just available, especially if those late game charged cells come down for J4.
The use of that Mana Biscuit means that Dawngrasp coming down this turn, and it looks like Ignite is going to get ripped to the face at the end of the turn to set this up. Frenetic is short the card draw, so the starving of the hand can happen. This game, it sounds like a very art house movie, starving of the hand. But if he's able to pick up really any form of card draw at this point, he's only 1 or 2 burn spells away from ending the game, although that Canal Slugger might have a little something left to say about that.
Yeah, he is, I think, in a reasonable position now to consider throwing away Fire Sail if he's not faced down by too wide a board next turn.
For sure, yeah.
Because he has the spell damage, he just really needs to grab some card draw. So I think the cycle now is much more worthwhile than it is earlier in the game.
Considering how he is going to go about dealing with this 7/7, whether he double trades with the Diligent Note Taker and the Canal Slugger, or whether he does less damage this turn to preserve one more minion on board by using the Serpentine Portal pointed at the Dawngrasp, which I do tend to like a little bit more. That's going to be what happens.
I believe that's Cobra Man. Will gain poisonous if it's on its own on the board.
Yep. There, like you said, that Oasis ally extremely likely to go off once that Dawngrasp comes down into play, which means that really J4 doesn't even have that good a control of the board right now.
Yeah, and it also means that I think at least that Frenetic can afford to do this, right? Because of that water elemental as well, and look at that.
That's getting traded again if this one thief doesn't find anything to help. The absolute nuts Cram Session ripped off the one thief. Imagine not playing one thief in your deck.
Woundor, Brain Freeze, another Cram Session to go Shooting Star doesn't look so bad either. It's just a worst case scenario plan. Great positioning though from J4.
True.
I like the Shooting Star though.
What to do?
It's very cheap, and it's just a backup plan for a potential bad scenario of J4 refilling the board somehow.
Runs out on me.
He's just going to get the full clear with the Shattering Blast instead though, right? Because he has the Flurry to kill the 2 minions. Yeah, like this. And then, he can rip a hot streak. And the Ignite at the end of the turn set that up for Cram Session number 2. on the following turn. J4 looking very much like he can pack it up at this point. This is much more akin to what we're used to seeing the Shaman Mage matchup play out like than the previous one against RDU.
And suddenly, Frenetic's pushed J4 so much now that even a double charge call probably wouldn't look that convincing, right? There's already a fireball in hand, as you said. There's a cram session plus a natural draw next turn, fire sale to cycle as well. It is just very likely that Frenetic can get the kill. We're not going to see any huge tidal waves sweeping in for a ton of healing in this game.
J4 just thinking through his outs with the charge call. There's really not that many. He does have Lightning Bolt, Perpetual Flame alongside that to clear the board, but I think whatever happens, you're going to open the box first. Maybe he's just considering not dying this turn and trying to get a Brukan charge call turn next turn to double up and maybe win that way, but it just seems very, very unlikely.
Does get to clear this board now and then significantly buff the Elemental, which is, if you're going to go for long shots, I've seen worse.
True.
Be an OTK next turn.
Okay. Get enough guidances and you got Stew going.
Some blooms. There's Ignite, and I believe that's just it, right? You only needed the one. As long as it was 7.
Yeah, as long as it was a juiced one, he was in business.
Yep.
You can see he still had plenty more card draw. He had spell damage from the Primordial Study still to come. Very, very much in business there. And from J4's side, I think reasonable. He doesn't know that the situation is as hopeless as we did because we can see the second cram session in hand. I think he has a suspicion because Frenetic played a very resource-starved game in general, which meant he had a lot of card draw stacked in the remainder of his deck, Spring Waters, Arcade, and so on. So I think he had a suspicion that he was probably going to die that turn, but from his perspective, not seeing the cram session, you can understand why he spent so long thinking about various outs, from 1 8-drop this turn versus 2 8-drops next turn versus do I need to clear this board completely with the Perpetual Flame and overload that aggressively because then that limits my options for next turn when I get the Brukan. In the end, I think he found a decent out, right, with the Arcane Devourer being a huge minion set up for the next turn, but wasn't going to be enough against the power of the late game hand that Frenetic had.
And in response, J4 is going to bring out the Anaconda Druid again. It's going to be the Glowflies Arbor Up style list that we saw from Wama in the previous match. See if he can just grab a win versus the Mage and maybe a second win as well. I do feel like right now this type of Druid is in a strong position to take, that sort of coveted double win in the last hero standing. That even the half sweep would do here for J4 just to get going a bit here.
Yeah, I do like Druid as a spicy deck. I like the actual Celestial Druid a little bit more. This is pure Anaconda. There's sometimes people tech in just 2 Celestial alignments into this Anaconda list as well. It's kind of a weird middle ground. That's a list that, I respect the tech, but it doesn't really do what Celestial Druid does with the Celestial alignment. So the card itself can feel a lot lower power level in general. But I think Druid in general, some kind of Druid, has been a good X-Factor deck to me that I didn't really expect to see too much. It did start seeing a bit more play on ladder a day or two before submission, which I think was what really opened a lot of players' eyes to it. And I think it's ended up, because of that, being a very good choice for the players who have brought it.
Okay, now early Discover from the Nature Studies for J4.
Waits for no one.
Fungal looks just like a good baseline, as it normally is in these early picks, and J4 agrees.
Could have played a resizing pouch there to see the zero cost options, and then picked obviously Murloc Tiny Fin, because as we know that is the higher win rate of the 2 cards. It's very important to know.
Imagine he did and then just won the game and you're like, wow, yeah, okay. Can't really argue with it so far.
Yep, 100% win rate. He'd pick Desk Imp. No chance.
Yep.
Get out.
What to do? What to do?
Interesting choice there from Frenetic as well, going for that hot streak. Nothing really to pay off with it, but it is a fire spell he can use, right? So it is one to just potentially tick off the quest and then just move on. You don't have to play a follow-up spell.
Yeah, it's a great one if you pick up a second fire spell as well to like cycle through the interval, right? You end step 1 with the hot streak and then start step 2 with you know, an ignite or a first flame or something like that. And generally work out pretty well, where if you're having a slow quest game, it can catch you up very quickly, progress quest twice in a single turn a lot of the time.
Looks like J4 is going to keep it simple, just coin out the overgrowth, and then going to get closer to those firework turns, right? Anaconda is playable. I think he might just wait a little bit because he doesn't quite have the mana still to get that germination out. But if he gets hold of a bloom, things can start getting crazy very quickly.
We can.
It is important to know as well, let me just triple check before I sound completely stupid. Yeah, Frenetic is playing a Devolving Missiles in his list.
Okay.
He's playing that one Devolving 1/1 Thief we saw a bit of last week. So that is just something to bear in mind if J4, for example, went for a bit of a low-value Anaconda and assuming they, say, makes 2 and passes, assuming they would live. A little bit dangerous against the Devolving.
Yeah, it's certainly good to know. We'll change your motivations and your considerations as the Druid player just that little bit, because that is generally the matchups where this deck thrives, right? It's a matchup where if you make 3 or 4 giant taunts and some arbor up minions and so on, there's just no way for the other deck to deal with it, right? That's what you really bank on when playing this deck. So Devolving Missiles is certainly a huge factor.
Not too much of a surprise, though.
Yeah. Going to come down now, and now this hand is juiced for next turn. Anaconda, Solar, Germination, Fungal Fortunes. Might even choose to go the other way around and Solar the Fungal Fortunes, depending on how many cards he gets down to. He has a resizing pouch to look for particular cards on various intervals as well. Like, this is a nutty Anaconda hand right now.
Yeah, and this is where things look a little bit meager, don't they, on the Mage side in this matchup, is look at what J4 can do next turn, and then look at what Frenetic's doing right now. Like, it looks a little bit weak. Time to go. Could wait one more turn.
I mean,
you shouldn't, but he could.
Or you could have like 120 on the board. That sounds better.
If I don't have that exact number now, Sol, I'm going to be upset.
What if it actually just is, though?
Then I'd be very impressed. There's your answers.
Yeah, with that end, I think, lost track for a second, but I think he ended up doing the
double germination
instead there. Oh no, he did do solar germination. Yeah,
because he's got the second one in hand.
Yep. Yep, Scenario Ward all the way down to 0. Can find himself another 8-drop, drop the Arbor up, drop the Soul of the Forest. It wasn't the most explosive turn in terms of chaining card draw, but it is a ludicrous board.
Frenetic's eyebrows nearly left the top of his head at that point at the end of the turn. It's like, oh, I've got to deal with this somehow. Not even just how big and scary the board is, but also just the fact that the Death Rattle effect means that even if the miracles happen, there's probably still going to be a board of 2/2s.
Oh, it says explode!
Evolving Missiles, please? Anyone? Bring more
again.
Huge. That's not there. Fish for it with the Ruined Orb, I suppose, now.
He still has Arcane Intellect if he wants to go extreme.
True. Didn't even find Flurries either, right? To just be able to multi-freeze with the Cone of Cold and Flurries. Drop a Brain Freeze as well, maybe along the line, get a full freeze going. Yeah, that is a pretty depressing last 11 cards in your deck when you really look at it.
I mean, not that it would have necessarily been good right now, but like double fire sales there as well, which, you know, at some point, if the game continues, be relatively impactful. Ooh, grab the Flame Strike.
Okay.
Good response from Frenetic. Most players, I think I would have already conceded.
Yeah, very, very clean response. However, the top deck card draw is exactly what Frenetic will have not wanted to see there. probably just going to cycle turtles here.
Is there anything that, like resizing pouch, survival of the face, or something that?
Yeah, I mean, guess that's an option, sure.
Just because it was 0 mana at 10, right? It still counts as 10 because it's 0.
Yep.
Just a thought to like, beef up the board again, right? Because he has to assume that it's likely that there isn't any big AoE if he gives everything another 4 health, right?
Okay, there's the remaining solar. The big card you're always looking for in these positions because it gives you the maximum options of what you're going to do with the rest of your turn. Does have the other Arbor up as well in hand, so can just drop a Solar Arbor this turn. He is not going to, though, if he's going to make these attacks first, perhaps saving that for emergency refill if he really needs it. Does open up an out or two for Frenetic in this spot, though.
Yeah, I guess the plan is right. If there's AoE there, well, he has another board of 2/2s. If there's another AoE that clears that, then he has Glowfly Solar Arbor, right?
No more spell damage left in the deck, right? Obviously, apart from the Dawn Grasp, which is way too expensive to come down this turn.
He can Dawn Grasp Hot Streak with Fire Sale.
Yeah, I wanted to
two
like...
twos.
Right, but I'm thinking if you can go like Arcane Intellect, grab a 0 mana Studies, play that, get a 0 mana Lab Partner, like you can end up doing so much more, right? And then maybe clear the wave of Treants afterwards as well, but I think that's just not the case here.
Well, this is quite nice actually because he has the 2 spells now to kill 2 of the 2/2s. It's just a small issue because it still means he realistically has to spend 5 mana on Dawn Grasp next turn now.
Yes.
Obviously, he's generally under much less threat, but with J4 at, 2 cards left in the deck, Frenetic has to expect an Arbor up. I think that is very reasonable here.
Yeah, I mean, you expect the worst possible thing for you, right? Which is Solar Arbor, I guess, in this position. You just always give your opponent credit for having the nuts when they have 2 cards left in deck, unless there's just absolutely no way you can beat that. That'll be 6 damage 4 times for 24 if that is to come down. Jay is just going to make the most aggressive board once again that he possibly can. Dropping those turtles, even though he ends up kind of wasting spots with the minions from the Arbor up, just having that 7 health as a base, he's really valuing here, getting the high health minions in play.
Yeah, it's a big deal, isn't it? 5 health and a dream here for Frenetic. Ice Spire doesn't really look too cool right now.
Still no flurry. That's so outrageous.
Double flurry.
Yeah, there's the 2 flurries. But if he'd have drawn it as a top deck, he had Dawn Grasp, Fire Sale, exactly 2 minions live, and he can just flurry them, right? If he'd have drawn the card Flurry in his top 21 cards, he would have perhaps still had a chance in this game. This way he freezes out all but 2. He's at 13 and there's 12 showing. He's just always dead.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think there was any play that kept him alive. It's just an unfortunate position. I think even then he's okay, right? Like say he had 1 more health. There's a possibility he lives there, and then he still has, I think, a second Fire Sale remaining in his deck at that point. I don't think he's used the other one, so he can then rip that one with the Dawn Grasp and go Dawn Grasp Fire Sale the next turn. But yeah, it was a very, very close one from Frenetic. Super impressed with the I guess the power of his response to what looked like a game-ending turn from J4. His deck was just a little bit unkind to him in the end. Just a couple of turns earlier drawing a flurry, and he really could have started making the counter-offensive there.
And also, if he just got 1 turn of wiggle room to play Dawn Grasp, that game could look very different. As like I said, Frenetic really showing his resilience there in that game, but J4, of course, grabs the win, evens up the series, and now has to face down Hunter of the face variety with this Druid now. So again, a tricky tricky matchup, one that Hunter can definitely get the job done. And arguably even more so than historic sort of mid to late game Druids, because there are cards that feel a little bit weaker, right? Like having an Anaconda in your hand early can be a little bit awkward, with those germinations as well, aren't quite as easy to get rid of without the ramp at least.
Yeah, especially because, as you saw in the previous matchup where J4 did it, you generally want to be keeping Anaconda in this deck, right? Like, you know, matchup be damned, you generally want to have Anaconda in your opening hand, so you at least have some kind of huge pop-off plan lined up, and you can have the security of not discarding it to Fungal Fortunes. But you're absolutely right. Like, if you start thinking like that against Hunter, they're just going to go 1, 2, 3, you're dead. And that's just the crux of this matchup overall. And I will also say, this is one of the matchups where Imprisoned Felmore, which is a card that I'm not a massive fan of in the current meta, this is a matchup it can shine in, absolutely. Yep. 4 health minion on turn 1, the nuts.
Really strong follow-up as well. Intrepid Initiate with a Demon Companion probably next turn means that not only is the Felmore obviously going to make its attack very soon and be active on board, but there's double threats on the board nice and early for J4 to have to consider how to deal with. He does have a Pounce, which he picked up, which is not too shabby at all. And the double Rhino is actually quite weak against Druid. But still, pretty aggressive opening. Frenetic will definitely be looking for something spicy off the tracking. No ramp for J4 is a big deal, though. If he could have innovated into Overgrowth this turn, the game plan can look very, very different for him.
Yeah. The Pounce is nice, sure, to be able to clear up the initiate, but it's always a miserable feeling, right? When you take Pounce as Druid, you know, particularly these Celestial Druid, Token Druids, decks that quite often skip their early turns, and then you just end up playing it and floating the other 3 mana on any given turn. You're kind of like, well, this could have been a much better removal spell for me to spend 3 mana on, right? And not just Pounce, but the initiate has to go down in that position, absolutely.
Really weird pickup here, honestly, from Frenetic, or at least options, should I say, from tracking.
Yeah.
He ends on Rinlings. I think I might have ended on the same, or just gone tracking again to look for something more spell-based, like an aim shot. But it will almost certainly push 2 to face, and if you get a Pack Tactics, then you're feeling pretty great, right? Because it's doubtful that J4 can kill all of these minions with spells alone. You imagine there's going to be a hero power trade or, you know, a Glowfly trade potentially at some point. So having the extra 3/3 is a really big deal.
What to do?
And also, like, the tracking could have got him, could have been another poor set of options, and maybe you just had, like, deal 1, have a 1/1, which is just worse than Rinland's Rifle.
Yeah, J4 just making the face, and that's probably the correct reaction to the situation. Not really a lot to be doing here. He's thinking, well, maybe innovate Glowfly for a few 2/2s, but then you kind of take away your potential for an insane high roll with Anaconda next turn. But with this current hand, I think you're miles away from that high roll potential. Like, you could innovate Lady Anaconda next turn, Nature Studies looking for Lightning Bloom, and then you've top decked, like, what at that point, right, to even get you out of that position. So I think rightly so, he's just going to drop the Nature Studies right now and try and look for some answers.
Yeah, did pick up Mark of the Wild, which he will now be able to innovate Anaconda Mark of the Wild at minimum next turn, if he's not dead, of course, which I think it's fair to assume he wouldn't be dead. He's close, though.
Extremely.
Oh, I hope that was a Pack Tactics.
It was Cages.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think is largely the same motivation, right? If you're saying these minions are going to get killed by spells, then the best he can do is hero power my 1/1, open the cages, kind of plays to that same thing, right?
None can stand against the Serpent Lords.
Yeah, just generally the Pack Tactics is a more active minion in the following turn, right?
This also rewards you if they do nothing, which is the situation here he wouldn't have got rewarded with the Pack Tactics. So he is very much rewarded for his pick, and that Huffer ends up pushing through the damage. Frenetic has now reversed the standings of the series with that Hunter counter queue having gone down to the Druid earlier.
And we have seen the back and forth so far, right? Mage taking on Shaman to be expected, I would say. Then the Druid taking down the Mage, similar. Hunter versus Druid makes sense, especially with that opening versus what J4 had. Really, excuse me, really not an opening you want with the Druid. And now we're going to see it's all come down to this. Quest Hunter versus Face Hunter. Which Hunter reigns supreme?
And honestly, this is that rare moment in the broadcast, Raven, where I get to divert to your knowledge instead, because I will confess, I'll happily put my hands up. I have played 0 games of Quest Hunter this expansion, and I don't know, I haven't seen you play any games of Quest Hunter, I haven't heard you talk about any games of Quest Hunter, but I'm incredibly confident that you have played some Quest Hunter this expansion.
And your confidence will be rewarded, because yes, of course I've played Quest Hunter this expansion. It was literally the first deck I queued. I played it a lot on day one. I wasn't feeling it quite day one because Shock Horror, I made a bad version straight away. But the lists, honestly, that are available now are pretty decent, especially if your opponent is playing minions against you, because cards such as Bowler Shot become incredibly powerful, right? Not only progressing your quest, but also just doing great job at removing the board. One thing that Frenetic will probably keep an eye on in terms of positioning, because you can fall into some traps there with that Bowler Shot. But one big thing, if you haven't seen this quest before, as it's not the most popular thing on ladder, is how quick you can actually get it done versus other classes right now, because it is just 2 procs of damage each time, and also the second proc itself, and arguably in this matchup the first, are huge, making your hero power targeting, so you can use it similar to a Mage hero power, but it deals 2, is proc 1. The second proc makes your hero power cost 0, so you just relentlessly deal 2 every single turn, and then the final proc, of course, is the minion that then makes your hero power refresh every time you play a spell, which is a big deal, as you can imagine, for those miracle sort of Raza Priest days of old, to a slightly lesser extent, I would say. But yeah, I'm very interested in this matchup, because it's one that does have options, right? Just having all of these minions there, those Bowler Shots I told you about, being able to just, honestly, bat away any problems that Frenetic puts forward initially, and you can see this straight away. Nice minion, it's dead, dealt 0, and now he has 1 quest progression already.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask, 'cause I mentioned earlier, you know, Quest Hunter is still quite Face Hunter in essence. Just glancing at the list, I'd say maybe 15 cards-ish that are still played in Face Hunter, and then a bunch of extra spells thrown in there alongside that. Like, how similarly does it play out, and how is it against Face Hunter in general? Because, you know, my suspicion is that just having removal spells to keep control of the board while whittling away with hero power should actually give you a decent matchup against Face Hunter. Is that accurate?
I believe so, yeah. It plays like Face Hunter in the Mage matchups, in the Warlock matchups,
yeah,
right? But in the minion board focus matchups, I've actually often found it turns out the other way round a lot of the time, where your hero power is the one killing the minions and your spells are going face. Because obviously aiming your hero power first is pretty nice. There aren't tons of minions that are bigger than 2 in these sort of board focus games, but you can see right away this quest will get procced now. I believe, yeah, that's 2, so it will now become targetable, and already he's halfway to making it cost 0 mana. It's so fast, it's actually unbelievable. The difficult part with this deck is when you run into the issues Mage runs into, where if you don't play against a deck that plays minions, these Bowler Shots are almost non-existent. You end up having to target your own minions with spells just to get it cooking. But already, look, hero power the 3/4, do other stuff. You might not, because he has Bowler Shots to use up, but just as an example, like if it was at hero power, draw cards, continue the quest.
Hand is starting to get just a little bit awkward now, I would say, though.
I wonder.
I remember very early on looking at the list of Quest Hunters that were being played, and there's a very clear divide between good Hearthstone cards and cards that are in the deck because they're spells that deal damage, right? Yes. Like, you can see it very, very clearly, and sometimes when those cards just start to stack up in hand a little bit, like just the overall card quality of your deck can suffer.
Yeah, 100%. And I will just highlight this, because not many people may have seen it. It does deal 1 damage to a minion Bowler Shot, and it deals 2 to the minions either side, which is why I was talking about positioning earlier. Obviously not a great card to use against a singular minion. But again, I wouldn't overly hate it if J4 just dumped the bowler shots, or at least one of them this turn. Looks like he's going to commit the quick shot instead.
I think the reason he's fearing using bowler shots like just for straight up quest completion, certainly the reason I would be afraid of, is that you've seen double Warsong Wrangler from your opponent, and this probably isn't a Rhino matchup, right? So if you start using bowler shot, which is pretty much the best AoE card that you have in the deck, and then massive Wolpertingers start coming down on the other side, that might get a little bit scary.
100%. And I did wonder if he could use one, which then reduces down the Wrangler, leave the Wrangler up, and then, you know, obviously it helps with the next bowler shot. And look, there you go. Good old positioning there from Frenetic to an extent, or as best he could, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely has it in mind, right? The stealth is in between two of the big minions and next to the biggest minion, so that is the best positioning.
Also, the bigger minion, health-wise, is next to the dormant one, which means, like, if he bowler shots the Wolpertinger on the far right, then it's the other one's still not really killable that easily, still going to require 2 damage.
Still has a 0 mana targeted 4 damage hero power to throw out this turn.
Not bad, is it? It's not bad. It is good to note, though, and important, that he could have used that hero power last turn and been able to use his hero power for 0 again this turn, right?
His turn's just made so much, so much more awkward by the good positioning from Frenetic. As you said earlier, it's the little things.
Here comes Tavish. He just clear off the majority here, and then it's Tavish time very, very soon. And unlike other quests, there is, unless you're literally about to die, there's like very little reason to hold this card in your hand. This is literally the point of the deck. It's not like some Warlocks, right, where you just don't have to play Tamsin. It's just a bonus at the end.
Yeah, perfect timing as well, because it'll come down as a big 7/7 into the Felmore turn and have that potential to tank it, which is a very big deal.
And you can just kill off this cold card this turn.
Can kill off the cold card.
Yeah. It's so sick!
Fight, right?
Yeah. Like I said, in these matchups, the hero power often acts like a sort of half control. It's not all about just spamming face, right? You can just bat away these minions, and suddenly he's just sat with a 7/7. He's going up against the Felmore, as you mentioned, but...
Okay, that's a good outcome for sure from Frenetic.
And this is where Frenetic needs to just go everything face and just hope that J4 runs dry on the spells.
Yeah, fits in the aim shot hero power this turn. I was already considering in the time where Frenetic played his entire turn whether you needed to use the piercing shot this turn because you wouldn't necessarily have a minion anymore, but you know, Frenetic clearly had it mapped out very quickly that he was going to end. He was going to end with one Marcel Cup and the piercing shot in hand, so no reason to be inefficient in that regard.
And this is where racing becomes tricky because, like I said, there's a mixture here, right? You can see J4 respecting the Felmore and then just push it. And look, the damage is ridiculous. It stacks up so fast.
Oh. Like you might as well clear the board at this point. No, I guess you have a nice 2-turn lethal setup, right? If you start pushing some of the hero powers to face instead.
Because you always have to plan for you drawing only one single spell next turn, which is 4 damage with hero powers plus whatever the spell does. And it is important to not think you can chain every turn because you're Hunter. You don't really draw cards.
Right. If he was to shoot the minion, wound prey the minion, trade in, shoot face, he would put his opponent to 15, and he would have 11 on board still. So that is still a lethal setup, right? It just wouldn't be a lethal setup through Frenetic, like piercing shotting one of his 2/2s or something, which is the problem.
Not every draws a spell either, which is important. Because the Entrapped Sorcerers, for example, wouldn't proc because there's no quest live now. Venomous Scorpid would be fine, Barak would be fine, but Tailing would also be a big whiff.
So in the end, I think there is a possibility that not pushing all the damage face there might just come back to bite J4 because of that piercing shot, because of this little bit of extra control here.
But Frenetic has been forced to trade, right? Which is a bonus as well. There's piercing.
Whoa!
That is... Wait, can he ever do this a different way? He can't, right?
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's fine. He can just pass, right? Because he can always play, or almost always play piercing shot next turn.
Needs to be quick shot, right? Oh, so close!
2 off.
Well fought. I concede.
Quest Hunter takes the victory, and it does mean we are moving on to another game of Quest Hunter, which, you know, I love Frenetic, and this has nothing to do with the players, but I'm glad J4 won because I want to watch more. It is a close game, though, but like you can see, in that style of matchup, the hero power being 0 and targetable is so great at actually just the control style until you can get Tavish online. And it paid off, because look how wide Frenetic went, right? And he managed to pick off the minions just about well enough to just push Frenetic into that lethal spot there. Really close game, though.
Yeah, even through the positioning, right? Double bowler shot just ended up just being way too much clearing potential. It was a little bit awkward in the opener for sure, but it ended up paying out pretty big in the end. And this was a very strange endgame scenario where I think the decision on trade or face is very unclear there. J4 chose to go for trade and then hilariously drew one of the few cards in his deck that was not going to deal any additional damage that turn, which meant Frenetic did have an out, I think, because I think he did have mana to go, like, play the minion, quick shot, draw piercing shot the minion, hero power face, right, which would have been lethal.
And that would have been more than enough damage, right? That would have been tons as well. So, yeah, tough one there for Frenetic. Very close matchup. And honestly, even if you pretend it was a Face Hunter mirror, a lot of the Face Hunter mirrors get that close as well, where it's just a 1-turn difference. He is going to be going up against this Shaman, though, for the last game of the series and last game of the day. And I'll be honest, Sottle, when I played a good chunk of Quest Hunter, this Quest Shaman wasn't really knocking around. So this is more of a theory-based matchup, at least in my knowledge, than it is an actual practice matchup for me.
I mean, it does certainly seem from our America's style sample size of 1 that the Hunter quest is completed quicker than the Shaman quest, which I think is necessary, because the Shaman quest, I would say, in this matchup has the ability to win the game 1 turn after being completed, right, if Charge Call is in your hand, whereas the Hunter quest will take multiple turns from that point onwards, so I would expect it to be being completed a little bit earlier on average.
It is another matchup, though, where Hunter benefits from your opponent, or their opponent, should I say, playing minions, right? Because imagine that matchup against a Warlock, and you've got 2 bowler shots. You just sat there like,
Can bowler shot hit friendlies? I don't even know if
it can, but again, you don't draw that many minions if you've got double bowler shot either, so it gets like really weird and mana intensive because they're 2 mana each, of course. So pretty tricky overall.
Yo, this hand is just the hand. This is exactly what you want in this spot. We ride.
I was going to say from who, because J4's hand's not bad.
It's not this, though, is it? Let's be honest.
Just you wait. Tavish has got this. Now, this is obviously very good from Frenetic, and that's another way you can do it, right? I said this Hunter wants your opponent to play minions. Well, it doesn't want you to play like 100 of them on turn 2, so that's a little bit out of reach.
Yep. Just goes with the 1 bloom Feral Spirit. This way he can use the 2nd bloom next turn to unlock all of these crystals back again, potentially drop the Serpentine portal.
And on this side for J4, I think this is an aim shot. Just to keep it simple, kill off one of the minions. He could do it with the other 2/1 costs, but then he like weirdly floats a mana and overkills the minion. Oh, Sol's happy.
Never mind. Forget about Serpentine portal. Sign me up for a Canal Slogger. Oh, no, I guess not.
I think he wants a guaranteed trade to happen with that, right? Which is not necessarily the case if he just plays it out.
So is it what he's concerned about long-term health total?
Yeah, I think he wants the 6.
Even though he's this far ahead?
I think so.
Okay. I feel like you can just play it there and get the healing by hitting your opponent in the face next turn if you really need it.
Remember double bowler shot though, Sol. J4 just trying to plan out what his turns look like. Again, he could play Scorpid and overwhelm this turn to kill off one of the 2/3s.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a type of quest you can just double complete in a turn a lot of the time as well, especially with Barak in the hand to fill it up. So
Right.
you don't have to rush the quest. It's beneficial too, of course, but it's not the end of the world. You can get it finished pretty quick.
Well, these aren't Hearthstone cards.
No, Serpent Bloom's the playable one though, so get it played. Or get it picked, should I say. He shouldn't play now.
I mean, could.
He could, but that's a 0 mana deal 2 damage, so.
That's true. Yeah, you have a very good point there.
Reflect in the
Again!
Oh no! No immediate payoff for it though.
Oracle of a Loon. Heck of a quest shaman card. Gotta be said.
Can just
Where did that Druid go? You remember like day 2 when people were playing
Yeah.
aggro Druid with this and the taunt synergy? Just disappeared off the face of the planet.
I think Huntrace is the only one trying to keep that alive. With peasants.
With peasants, of course, yeah. And meeting stones.
Yeah. Bear in mind now though, J4 can just hero power this 2/4 down if he's that scared of it. Or he could just say, you know what, I want way more spells, let's go Barak.
I know, it's just such a low impact turn if you press your hero power this turn, right? That's the sketchy part. You really just wanted to jam Barak this turn, but...
You do pretty much just activate or get Tavish in your hand next turn though if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
Okay, was not expecting that.
You're just paying the price, you know.
Just clearing up, yeah,
Yep.
double dropping spells so that he gets the 0 mana hero power, and then using the 0 mana hero power to take care of the 2/4. A
Yep.
little bit inefficient, but does the job of progressing the quest as well, which is obviously very nice.
Also, of course, with Barak, there are a couple of 1-cost spells he can draw that will deal damage as well, so he can go Barak 1 cost. The Wound Prey or second Arcane Shot is still available for him. There is the slight whiffs of resizing pouch and tracking, arguably, for next turn.
Right.
Again, though, the 0 mana targeted hero power starts to be very nice.
It does.
Could just choose to go slower, play the 3-drop now, and actually just go Overwhelm hero power to kill off the Slogger.
I want to know why they call me Kodo.
You can still do that this way. It doesn't get the 3/4 on board.
Right. He still has one more turn, likely, right, to get value out of the Entrapped Sorceress before he loses the quest, right? He's only damaging with 1 spell this turn, so he's still chilling.
Yeah, unless he probably just wants to activate and play Tavish though, right?
True. Yeah, no,
Quick shot Tavish next turn, which is a big deal. Opens up way more mana for him the turn after.
Diligent Note Taker hits the insta Stormwatcher as well. Diligent Note Taker top deck was huge because it allowed him to have the best of both worlds with the charge call, right? Use
Yeah.
it now to try and set up immediate lethal and have it in reserve for that Bruckhorn turn a little bit later.
Oh, wait. Can he do this? He can, right? Wound Prey Serpent Bloom and get it through to the 4/8. Yeah, he just quick shots it or aim shots
Quick
it.
shot. Team
Oh.
good.
Good recovery there, because honestly, I had a heart attack seeing the 4/8. I was like, well, this game's over. But yeah, good. That Serpent Bloom coming in clutch, honestly, that he picked up earlier on.
Oh, you can actually still do it and get Tavish down, right? You can just use the hero power or take the trade.
Yeah, Bloom and then go. Still has the 3/5 to make a trade as well. Woo! What a turn.
Yeah, Frenetic quite clearly frustrated by the way these last 2 games have panned out. Can sometimes feel this way, right? When you get an off-meta deck, you kind of come into it with like, well, it's an off-meta deck for a reason, right? And then you kind of expect to just be able to win very easily, but sometimes it's not the case, as you can see here.
Went for armor. Did have the Arcane Anomaly as a choice there.
Yeah.
Armor does make sense, though.
Well, I think also, because he wasn't doing anything else, it's just immediately an 8-8 over a 4-8, right? Like, it's not even necessarily about the armor. He's just picked a much bigger minion.
But if J4 can clear this up, which he just must be able to, I refuse to believe that he can't, then Frenetic's just on top deck wars, and J4, like, almost every card left in his deck will allow him to double hero power on any given turn, which you just have to say gives him the advantage if it's going to go down to raw top decks, right? And look how clean this is. Kills off the 2-1, push 10 to face. Oh! Do you believe
No damage. No damage going on to the Tavish here either, which is crucial because of this Perpetual Flame set up.
Charge call for 10, right? Oh no, it only affects it once, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, apologies, yeah. Can't Brukan, though.
Well, I suspect you do just Brukan, don't you?
Sorry, he can't Brukan and charge call this turn. Apologies.
Right, no, I'm with you. But I think of the two...
I think so.
Wow, he goes for a 9-drop. Surprising. Honestly, very strong.
Hey, Sleepy Dragon. Shot hero power first. I've made this mistake and got giddy and forgot the first hero power. Tough decision though, because he has to work out whether he wants to go face with these or start chunking down this dragon. But he does have tailing. What if he just spams it all face? Does it ever get there? Probably not. Oh, Devouring Swarm. That's kind of alright, isn't it?
Is it better than Quickshot though? Because it takes some time.
He gets Tavish back though, right? So you can just play another 7/7?
You just play another one. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
It's expensive. He doesn't even have to play it this turn, but at the moment, like I said, because Hunter can't reliably draw cards to keep multi-procking this hero power, just have an additional 7/7 on the board. You know that Frenetic's got Brukan in hand, but you have seen that second charge cell, right? So you know that there's not going to be the craziness that there could be in the following turn.
Some rope issues coming into play here. It's an awful lot of mana that still needs spending this turn. Hopefully J4 has got through it all. Yep, Tavish does come down. That final hero power as well.
What's the draw for Frenetic?
Oh!
It's going to be so close. Quick shot, that's actually horrible. It's not that bad, actually. It's not that bad. He just plays everything in quick shots, right?
Oh, I'm so clenched, Raven. Oh, the Instructor Fireheart lethal for 12 next turn. Can't be that unlikely, surely. It's even Instructor Fireheart plus another card as well.
Yeah. J4 just has to do this. Was respecting the Brukan as well. Worried about any kind of silence effects or ways to get through the taunt and push additional 7. I can understand that. Venomous Scorpion means he's going to have likely 2 spells to play next turn to put the hero power.
J4's reaction immediately. Lightning Bolt! That's half the job done! Any portal, any bolt. Guidance! Oh, it's over. It's over. There is no way J4 is alive. There is no way on earth.
Oh, Dunk Tank, that'll do it. Extremely close there, but the Brukan into Fireheart follow-up was simply too much. It breaks my heart to see Queston to lose, but it was very, very close. And I will say, there was a little bit of a danger moment, right, Sol? Because the charge call before the Brukan decision from Frenetic meant that well, yeah, his next draw after Brukan then had to be really good. And, well, yes, it was really good. And that pushed him over the edge. But if that was one of the lesser options from Frenetic, that game could have easily swung the other way.
Yeah, I'm curious about that decision, right? Because obviously, I understand the downside of not playing the big minion first, right? You basically have a 7/7 that your opponent can remove very easily, largely ignore. You get hit in the face for 7 by the Tavish on the other side. You start even wondering whether you have enough health to survive 2 turns of hero power chains from your opponent, right? However, that 7/7 is only ever hitting you once at that point, right? If you go Brukan first, because the second time, again, I think you are 50-50 to hit the Scrapyard Colossus, right? So you're very favored, 75% to hit at least 1 of 2 charge calls. And if you play, I think, 1 7/7 Scrapyard Colossus, that's not getting removed by Quest Hunter, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't think that's ever happening. So I don't think you're ever tanking the damage from that again. So it was a very interesting decision for me, but certainly it led us down the path to what was a fantastic conclusion to the game, where we just had to wait and see whether the Fireheart would hand enough damage into the eager waiting hands of Frenetic, who in the end did manage to get there with a lightning bolt and a dunk tank.
Yeah, and look at that for the top 4. A bit of a different story from the previous week, where it's more of the old school players, I think it's fair to say right now, with Bunnyhopper, Warmer, and Frenetic, with just Gabby at the top there, with his sights set on the crown once more. And honestly, we talk about Gabby a lot, and I think, might be too much for some, but it is understandable. I think it's hard to live in any world where Gabby doesn't win, because he just keeps proving us wrong, or right, I guess. But that is a strong top 4 there with a different selection of lineups, especially with Warmer in there with that Miracle Rogue.
Yeah, it's a good spread of lineups, right? Warmer in there with the Rogue, Frenetic in there with the aggressive lineup with the Hunter, and then Gabby in there with the double combo lineup as well. I think it's a good spread of both player personalities, matchups, and lineups that we have going into our top 4. But I mean, you